Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israel grants Egypt access into the Gaza Strip for the purpose of searching for the remaining 13 deceased hostages that remain in Hamas captivity to date. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stresses an uncompromising tone vis-à-vis Hamas' requirement to disarm. Jerusalem rejects Turkey's involvement on the ground in the Gaza Strip. The United States and the State of Israel are close partners with an ironclad alliance, mostly aligned on strategic issues globally, and respectively independent and sovereign, amid circulating claims that Israel is essentially a proxy or vassal state of the United States, alongside old conspiracies of Jerusalem's sway over Washington's foreign policy. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu utilized his remarks at the start of his weekly cabinet meeting to set the record straight.
Over the past month, we have been witnessing ridiculous claims regarding the relationship between the United States and Israel. When I was in Washington, it was said there that I controlled the American administration, that I dictated security policy to it. Now, the opposite is being claimed. The American administration controls me and dictates Israel's security policy. Neither of these is true. Israel is an independent country. The United States is an independent country. The relations between us are relations between partners, and this partnership, which has reached an all-time high, was also expressed in the operational cooperation in the second part of Operation Rising Lion. It is also expressed, and was expressed just recently, in the release of all the living hostages from Gaza, and of course in the effort to return all the fallen, and also in other areas in which we are changing the face of the Middle East together.
Prime Minister Netanyahu continued by stressing that Israel's security remains in Jerusalem's control and based on its fundamental responsibility towards the citizens of Israel, there will be no tolerance vis-à-vis attacks against Israel. The remarks by the Prime Minister followed separate remarks by U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio during a visit at the Civil Military Coordination Center, or CMCC, that was erected in southern Israel for the purpose of implementing President Donald Trump's 21-point plan for the Gaza Strip. Secretary Rubio was asked whether Israel had to ask for permission before it launched any attacks against Islamist Hamas in the event that the terrorist organization violates the term of the plan.
Asked it. I don't think this has to do anything with permission or anything of that nature. This has to do with basically we're all committed to making this plan work. There is no plan B. This is the best plan. It's the only plan. It's one that we think can succeed. It's one that we believe it's on the way to success, as impossible and unimaginable as it may have been.
Secretary Rubio continued by stressing, quote, healthy optimism about the 21-point plan, emphasizing, however, that there is a long path ahead of comprehensive implementation.
So this will be the journey to sort of get through the 21 points of the plan, to get through all the things that we're trying to achieve is not going to be a linear journey. There's going to be ups and downs and twists and turns. But I think we have a lot of reason for healthy optimism about the progress that's being made. But a lot of good progress is being made on a number of fronts, and you can break this out in a number of ways. The first is the maintenance of the current ceasefire, of the current peace that we're confronting, and that involves two things. Number one, deconflicting from any flashpoints that may come up. We need to understand, the world needs to understand that on the other side of that yellow line there is still a terrorist group that remains armed, and we've seen them take actions against their own population. I think it's important, by the way, that there be more media coverage given to the fact that Hamas has brutalized Palestinians, has brutalized Gazans over the last few days, and that's something to point to. But all of that has to be managed to make sure that in addition to that we don't have any flashpoints that could derail the broader process.
Secretary Rubio went on to emphasize that the United States essentially aims to create the conditions on the ground that would allow the residents of the Gaza Strip to live a life free from terror.
We want to create the conditions, we want to help create the conditions here so that people in Gaza don't have to be terrorized by Hamas, and in fact have lives, jobs, businesses, and a better future, and are completely uninterested ever again in joining, supporting, or being held captive by a terrorist group.
It is important to emphasize that the success of President Trump's 21-point plan is contingent upon the demilitarization of the Islamist Hamas. Therefore, amid continued defiance by the Islamist terror group, whose senior leadership repeatedly rejected any scenario in which they would disarm, the United States may ultimately be forced to enforce the terms and conditions of the plan by means of force.
If Hamas refuses to demilitarize, it'll be a violation of the agreement, and that'll have to be enforced. I'm not going to get into the mechanisms by which it is going to be enforced, but it'll have to be enforced. I mean, this is a deal, and a deal requires conditions to be met. Israel's met their commitments. They're standing at the yellow line, and that is contingent upon the demilitarization.
Secretary Rubio further stressed that the United States continues to work tirelessly to ensure the return of all of the hostages who've been murdered by Hamas from captivity.
We're not going to forget about the hostages. We push every single day, and we'll continue to push until the remains of every single hostage is returned. Work is going on. Even as I speak to you now, that's being pushed on. That's not something we're going to start talking about. We fully expect that Hamas will fully demilitarize. That is the agreement they signed on to. That is the agreement that all of the nation states that joined this effort signed on to, and we expect it to be fulfilled.
It is important to know that the bodies of 13 hostages, to include 2 American citizens, have not yet been returned from Hamas captivity in violation of President Trump's 21-point plan. Therefore, before Secretary Rubio departed from Israel over the weekend, family members of the deceased hostages met with Washington's top diplomat and urged him to keep fighting for their loved ones.
I think this is the 5th time that we met him since he entered office. We wanted to make sure that he and the team focused on the fact that there are still 13 hostages, including 2 U.S. citizens, one of them being my son. We got the reassurance that we were looking for from the Secretary, that they understand that the job is not done, that there are ways to make the hostages from an asset to a liability for Hamas to keep on holding. We understand there's a window of opportunity now that is open to get all the hostages out, and we need the United States to work closely with the Israeli government and making sure that the Israeli government also knows that this window of opportunity requires them to make also actions in order to get these hostages out. And the Secretary said that he is on his way to Qatar, meeting the President, and he promised that he will share the meeting that we had today with him, with the President, and making sure that the President also does whatever he can in order to keep on pushing to getting these hostages out, including the 2 U.S. citizens.
Meanwhile, in a collaborative effort with Egypt, Israel has granted an Egyptian delegation with heavy machinery access into the Gaza Strip.
In full cooperation with Israel, the Prime Minister approved the entry of an Egyptian team into the Gaza Strip to assist in searching for our remains of our deceased hostages. Now, this is a technical team only, and none of these personnel are in the military. What I can share with you is the team is using between 2 to 3 excavator machines and 2 to 3 trucks to search for our deceased hostages. Now, the Red Cross and the Egyptian team are allowed entry beyond the IDF's yellow line position into Gaza territory to conduct the search for our hostages. Last week, the Prime Minister and his professional team met with the head of Egyptian intelligence here in Jerusalem to talk about the ongoing issues that need to be resolved. One of those topics was why our hostages have not all been returned yet. We are working together to execute this plan and ensure Hamas upholds their side of the agreement.
It is worth mentioning that this is the first time Israel has allowed a foreign team to enter Gaza since the ceasefire took effect. That after Israel had refused entry to 81 Turkish rescue workers. Speaking on Israel's refusal to accept the Turkish boots on the ground, so-called, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, in a joint press conference with his host, the Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó, pointed at Ankara's hostility toward Jerusalem.
With regard to Turkey, why we are against the participation of Turkey in Gaza, so I would say that countries that once are ready to send armed forces should be at least fair to Israel. They shouldn't be so supportive maybe, but they shouldn't be hostile to Israel. Unfortunately, and mainly during the last 2 years, but even before that, Turkey led by Erdogan, led hostile approach against Israel, included not only hostile statements, but also diplomatic and economic measures against Israel. So it is not reasonable for us to let their armed forces enter to Gaza Strip, and we will not agree to that, and we said it to our American friends.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I want to thank you if you're a supporter of TV7 Israel, since your donation is helping us produce our daily news from here in Jerusalem. If you haven't yet supported TV7 Israel, please consider doing so. You can donate via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, as ever, pray for our brothers and sisters facing persecution globally, along with our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. Jonathan Hassan wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.